Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we're going to discuss the 2022 book Stranger Things, Lucas on the Line by Suya Davies. This is 330-something pages long. Very quick. I read this very quick. I got to read roughly 50 pages a day, as I've always intended to do through 2024, but for some reason my attention span within the start of the new year just hasn't been what it was last year. I read a lot more books last year than I did this year as of right now. But I read this book 50 pages a day, roughly 50 pages a day. So I did it. I was very proud to actually through it because it went so quick, and it's a story that is important. My only gripe is there's a 2 week timeline difference at the very end, and we'll talk about it. The beginning of this book starts out August of 1985. So we're literally a month and a half after the events of the Starcourt Mall burning and fire and fighting the, spider monster, as he's referred to in this book, the Mind Flayer. It's Lucas's perspective, right? So Lucas Sinclair, it's his perspective, right? So he wants to go into high school with new goals, and him, Mike, and Dustin are, agreeing to try new things and, do some different things. So Lucas is starting to show some interest in basketball because his peer mentor going into high school as a freshman, Jay DeMario, is on the basketball team. And so he talks to Lucas about trying basketball. If he wants to try something new, even if he's not good at it, he could still try out for it, stuff like that. So Lucas starts to practice basketball and starts to hang out with the basketball guys. And there's some horrible people on the basketball team. So then things happen later on. But Mike and Dustin don't like that Lucas is trying basketball because he's not fully immersed into the Hellfire Dungeons and Dragons Club led by Eddie Munson. Summer school full start semester of 1985. So it's a matter of Lucas trying to figure out, well, we agreed that we're going to do new things, so why are they mad that I'm doing new things? A little weird. He's having problems with Max. Max is dealing with the emotional stuff of losing the stepbrother Billy, losing Elle to her best friend, moving away to California with the Byers' family, the Byerses. The depression of Max comes to fruition and, starts to come about more after, the Byers pack up and leave officially. So then, it's stuff that's leading up. So what happens leading up into the rest of the school year. And then there's big stuff that happens, and Max and Lucas have an actual breakup on Thanksgiving of 85. And so when does she actually go from the house to the trailer park, kind of a thing in Forest Hills trailer park. So there's things being discussed in regards to that, but there's a lot of stuff going on. There's this kid who is a horrible racist on the basketball team who rigs a pipe bomb in Jay's locker, and it explodes right before winter break, right before holiday break, burning a janitor. So then he is got very rich parents, so it was hush money aside to pay for the cleaning and everything, and keep him in a in-school suspension aspect. But the rest of his cohorts were expelled, so it's just a matter of what's going on. And now that Jay is afraid to go back to school, and his parents decide, "No, we're moving. This is unacceptable," and they're gone. Lucas grew really close to Jay, and Jay is just like Lucas in regards to he's another black kid in Hawkins. So we get the black kid perspective in Hawkins. There's not many black kids. There's not many minorities in Hawkins. So getting this kind of dialogue was very important because Lucas was bringing about understanding things. There's a difference between a local black boy in Hawkins and an out-of-town black boy who now lives in Hawkins. There's a difference between the small town Hawkins, Indiana versus large town. They're talking about, the bombings in Philadelphia that happens. I don't remember what year that was, back 60s, I think. It's an interesting conversation piece brought about because Lucas can't talk to Mike about this. He can't talk to Dustin about this. He couldn't talk to Will about this. He can't talk to Elle or Max about this. They're not going to understand. They're all the same skin color. He's the only odd man out of the group, of the party. So with Lucas and Erica's uncle coming in here and there, his dad's brother, long lost brother, we get more family backstory, which was neat. where the parents come from, why they moved to Hawkins back in the day, things of that nature. So it's an interesting conversation about how to be yourself in a town which doesn't want you to be yourself, kind of a thing. But then as the story progresses, and then we lead up then to the beginning of season 4. Beginning of season 4 is March of 1986, right at the finals, championship finals game, the state finals game that they play, the Tigers play, basketball wise. So like there's stuff going on. So the first 3 quarters of this book is the lead up to the beginning of season 4, and then the beginning of season 4 is the last quarter, and we end the book with Max floating in the air in the cemetery in front of Billy's gravestone, and then crashing down, and Lucas holding her, and she's saying, "I'm here, I'm here." So it was such a weird experience. I'm not gonna lie, in regards to Lucas's perspective, in regards to what's happening in season 4, at the last quarter of the book, because we've already seen it. So we know that he's with Patrick and Andy and Jason trying to track down Eddie, and he breaks into Dustin's room, gets Cerebro and walkies and stuff like that. Like we've seen these different things. We see him trouncing through the school hallway, and then Steve attacks him with a lamp and like things like we've seen that. So it was neat seeing it from his perspective, and it's neat seeing other scenes from other characters' perspectives as well, but this is primarily Lucas's perspective. We've gotten other books, other comics, other novels from other characters, seeing different perspectives, but this is the first novel we've gotten in regards to seeing a season 4 perspective. So that was nice. My gripe is in the show, I was going to say film, in the show, the championship game takes place March 21st, which is a Friday, and then Mike leaves for California and gets to California on that Saturday, the 22nd. And we know that Mike goes the day after, because then Lucas, we know, is with the Tigers at Benny's Burgers abandoned place for that weekend, while then the murders start to happen, the quote-unquote Hellfire murders, which is really Vecna's curse, in Hawkins. But we know that Mike is in California with the Byers family and Elle, and it's documented on the camcorder that one of Angela's friends is recording with them then throwing a milkshake at Elle on the roller skating rink, that it's March 22nd. We know March 22nd is Will's birthday. So when you do the math and the calendar, March 21st is a Friday, which is when the championship game was of 1986, and then March 22nd is when Mike gets to California, goes to the roller rink right after they land, basically, right after he lands, and the camcorder says March 22nd. So the theory is Will was in a mood the entire time because nobody remembered it was his birthday, because Will's birthday is March 22nd. But in the book, that's not what happens. The events are 4, 5, and 6 of April. Championship game on the 4th. Mike goes to California on the 5th. And stuff then happens continuously on the 6th and Monday the 7th. But that's a 2-week difference. Now, the Duffer Brothers have stated they didn't intentionally put March 22nd on the camcorder, referencing the fact that it was Will's birthday, and that was a little nod kind of thing. It wasn't actually discussed, it just was. So, if we leave with that, then spring break, the start of spring break, was then April 4th of 86, per the novel, because that's dated, and that's the official Netflix stamp on it, right? So then if then that week, that spring break week, is then the events of Vecna, and then Hawkins collapsing and, upside down coming through. Fine, but there's the 2-week difference. There's a 2-week difference. We only know March 22nd as the date in which Mike is at the roller rink, because that's what the camcorder says. But the camcorder could be wrong by 2 weeks, which is a possibility. So let's just assume the camcorder is wrong by 2 weeks of that possibility. In that case, then yes, the events happened right before spring break 86, leading then into the rest of season 4. So I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed the conversations Lucas had with his dad, Lucas had with his mom about being black, certain privileged conversations that white individuals are not conscious to, and that there's a certain expectation within regards to folks who are not white, because that's how the country was formed, and it's disturbing. And it's just it's an interesting conversation piece. It's an interesting conversation piece for individuals who don't have that, melanin type of skin. That I had a conversation, I remember years ago, with a coworker, black mom, is talking to me about privilege, and I don't remember how we got into the conversation, but she's like, you got to understand something. Your parents never had the talk with you. And I was like, but yeah, we talked about, the birds and the bees. And she's like, no, not the reproduction talk, the life talk. And I was like, what's the life talk? And she's like, we have to, it happens. You have to sit your kids down. You have to, and they're just talking about, black kids in America. How does this work? That you have to sit them down, and we talk about X, Y, and Z. And it was basically like how they have to react in order to make sure that they survive if they get pulled over by a cop, if they are being harassed by racists, things of that nature. And I didn't ever think of it at that present moment, prior to that present moment. And then we were talking about it, and I was like, wow, you're right. And it was just a weird wake-up call that the world I live in is not the world that exists, if that makes any sense. That there's a different world for different people, and it's unfortunate that certain people have to tiptoe when they shouldn't have to. So I was very happy to sit down, to be able to talk to that coworker, and we worked very well together. We don't work together anymore, but it was the first type of moment where I had not an aha moment, but a peek behind the curtain moment where I didn't even know that there was a curtain to begin with. So it was and this was quite some time ago, where I started to learn these things. So this book reminded me a lot of that. This book reminded me a lot of those types of conversations that me as a white kid wouldn't be having as a teenager. But Lucas as a black kid in Hawkins, would be having these conversations with his parents. So it was a very interesting point from a perspective that I'm not familiar with. It's important. It's important to have these kinds of dialogues. It's important to read these kinds of dialogues, because people are different. Not everybody looks like you. Not everybody talks like you. Not everybody thinks like you. Not everybody smells like you. Everybody is different. Not even twins are the same. Everybody has some form of difference. So it's a matter of, what can I learn from you, and what can you learn from me, and how does this make us a better people moving forward? We, not me. And this book reminded me a lot of that. I was very happy to read that. I was very grateful to breeze through this and understand it and champion it. 50 pages a day. I was so proud of myself. But this book was important because the first 3/4 of the book was Lucas learning to be himself as a 14-year-old black kid in Hawkins, Indiana in 86. I just loved it. I loved his perspective. I'm really happy with half of the Stranger Things books we've read so far. Not all of them. Some of them. Most of them. The next one we have is Flight of Icarus, which is Eddie Munson's story. So we'll see how that works. That's a little shorter compared to the other ones. But these Stranger Things books, man, I'm quite happy seeing the perspectives. I'm quite happy getting more backstory at certain characters where I didn't know I wanted backstory, but I got it. But yeah, fun book, fun times, educational book, educational times. That's a better way to do it. Stranger Things, Lucas on the line. On to the next review. Mahalo.